So we have our model in the scene. One of the first things we do when we bring a model into Jig is we give it its materials and its colours. So I'm going to zoom in using the scroll wheel and select my model. And going to the colour palette tool, I'm going to go to materials and select a material. In this case, I'm going to select a rough plastic and give it a dark black colour. So our material is on. Next, I'm going to start selecting the sub-objects and give them their materials. So if I select my models and click up here to go into sub-object mode, as you can see, that just allows me to select the individual parts that make up the model. So in this case, I'm going to select this piece and then pressing Shift to multi-select, and I'm going to select these outer casings and give them their own material. In this case, a white shiny plastic. So as you can see, the model is already much clearer. Adding the colour has helped define the different parts of it. And I'm going to add in more materials. Just a couple of the trim pieces, I'd like them to be a metal material. Okay, now that the exterior is fully coloured, the next thing I want to do is select the internal components and give them their materials as well. So your first instinct may be to select the object and use the transform tool to move it out of the way. But when you do this, it isn't always easy for you to perfectly align it back to its initial position. So as you can see, there's a seam in the middle of the model. So in order to prevent this, I'm going to press Ctrl-Z. I can also use the bottom left-hand corner's undo redo tools, but in this case, I'm going to press Ctrl-Z and just get that model back in its initial position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another step. It's now on step 1, the initial position is saved, and on step 2, if I pull this model out, I can still go back to step 1 and still have that position recorded. And I can copy this information from step 1 to step 2. So I'm going to delete this step for now and start again from scratch. Now on step 2 is where I'm going to pull this model out. So what I'm going to keep in mind is that I have a couple of other objects in the scene that I'd also like to move aside. In this case, I'm going to select an object and press Shift Select. This will allow me to multi-select different objects. And while holding down Shift, if I click on them again, I can remove them from my selection. Another way of doing this is you can use the multi-select menu at the bottom of the toolbar. So once I click this, I'm in the multi-select menu, and any objects I click automatically get added to my selection. And I can remove them by clicking on them again. We also have a couple of other tools here. We have Lock Selection, Select All, we have Lasso Select, and we also have a Lasso Deselect tool. So these are quite useful when working with multiple objects. So I'm going to select the outward exterior pieces and confirm my selection. And now I'm going to move them aside using the Move tool. And as you can see, everything's moved across together. I'm also going to move this internal barrel out of the way, just so I can see these pieces underneath. And I'm going to finish adding in my materials. So for these bits of wire, I want them to be a warm copper colour. Just to distinguish between the two pieces of wire, I'm going to give them a red and a blue. Now once I've added a material, something to keep in mind is I can also change its colour. In this case, I'm going to make this wire a soft brass colour. Another fun tool in the toolbar is that we have the colour picker tool. I can use this eyedrop and it allows me to copy both the material and color of another object. So if you watch these little bolts down here and I select the wire, they get the exact same material as well as the color. And that can be a great way to speed up the jig texturing process. Okay, now that we have our objects fully colored and with their materials, the next thing I want to do is I want to go back to step 1 and I want to copy this position across to step 2. So in order to do this on step 2, I'm going to use the multi-select menu and then I'll select the lasso select tool. And I'm just drawing a loop around my objects to select everything and press the tick to confirm selection. Now when I go to step 1 and I press and hold on the move tool, I can open up the replicate menu. So this is one of our most powerful tools in the Jig workshop. Any attribute that I select while in this toolbar, for example, rotate, scale and color, can be copied across from one step to another. In this case, I just want to copy across the position from step 1 to step 2. So I'm applying that forward one step, and as you can see, it's been applied to the next step. So if I go back to step 2, we now have everything on this step fully colored, and we also have it correctly positioned. You can see those materials when I step inside, and the object is fully joined with no seams. So with this as a great base step, I'm going to press and hold step 1 and press the delete to remove it. Now step 2 has become our new step 1. Now at this stage of the creation process, with your model perfectly textured with the colours and materials, it can be a great time for you to save this out as a base file for future projects. So this would allow you to be able to make multiples of similar jigs using this model with the exact same materials, which can be a great way of ensuring consistency amongst different projects. So in order to do this, I'm going to go to the left-hand side and open up the details panel. And in here, I'm going to type in the jig's name. It's also a good idea to take a thumbnail picture. This will be the image that you see in the the Create section of the JigSpace app. So adding a picture can just help people at a glance see what the jig is going to be about and which models are contained inside it. So you can move around this scene and I'm going to get a nice dynamic shot of the hairdryer. And these two details have been filled, so I'm going to press save. And now if I scroll down the details panel, I can make a copy of this jig. Now the copy that I make will be the one that I continue on with. So in this case, I'm going to change the name from base to demo, because that's what we'll be making today. And with that done, I'm going to press save and I'm going to begin making my jig.